just gathering my thoughts. I just returned from a drive in the Macan EV. I wanted to try the rear drive, meaning single motor car. And the reason for that was, to me, a Porsche at its core is a rear drive, rear engine vehicle. So I have this thing with rear drive over all wheel drive, generally speaking, but I think in a Porsche in particular, there's something about at least starting to understand the chassis from a rear drive perspective and then taking it from there. So that's just a philosophical thing. What are my thoughts on this particular vehicle? Well, that's a pretty complex answer in the sense of I have very high standards for what a Porsche should be. I have very high standards for what a Macan should be. And that said, this car leaves me with some mixed feelings. Big shoes to fill, right? Last Macan, exceptional car if optioned correctly, and you get the right year, etc. So the potential of the gas Macan, as I'm looking at one right now, the potential of the gas Macan is huge. Honestly, one of the best cars of all time if you know what you're doing with the selection process. And I think a lot of people get that wrong. Maybe that's another video. This car, of course, only driven one iteration so far, essentially the most basic. This one stickers at about 90. I'll go over the options in a moment. This one is interesting in that it definitely feels like a relative to the Macan, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a Macan, if that makes sense. Because a big part of the Macan experience has traditionally been the sound and the PDK. And for me, that V6 in the Macan on startup and just the constant hum of that V6 is what made the Macan experience so special. Of course, the chassis and the steering and things like that can be wonderful, or it can be just better than average. I felt like when driving this car, I was feeling a little bit more Panamera vibe than I was expecting, a little more Cayenne vibe than I was expecting. Part of that might be that they've now gone with air suspension standard. Part of that might just be removing the soulfulness of the PDK and the gasoline powertrain, especially in the V6 form. There's a couple things about this car that make me admire it, and there's a couple things about this car that make me feel like I don't know if I could do it. On the admire it side of the ledger, they've brought back buttons. I had told Porsche product planners that this was a mistake to get rid of, and they have validated me by putting them back in. You're out there, you know I'm talking about you. Sorry, friend, you were wrong. And the other thing that I do like about this car is, while it's not to the same level as the previous generation car, this is still a pretty well done interior in 2025, like in terms of materials. I think it's one of the better ones in the EV space from an overall standpoint. Okay, that said, what don't I like? Porsche's philosophy is no regen. And one of the best things about an EV, and one of the best things about a Porsche, is this sense of engine braking. The high compression feel of a traditional Porsche, there was always engine braking. You could gear down. I feel like this car needs paddles to simulate gears or levels of regen in the same way that a PDK car can do that. I think that's a missing ingredient. It seems inevitable that they will do this. I don't know if the Taycan is now doing this or will be soon doing this, but Porsche would be absolutely idiotic to not implement it, because it's a missing ingredient from this as a driver's car. You're constantly having to use the brake pedal, and the brake pedal is very sudden, and it disrupts the flow that you create with this car. You can't really get into the zone with this car without thinking about, oh, am I going to upset the chassis? Oh, am I going to upset the chassis? Speaking of that chassis, because the air is now standard some people are going to be thrilled. They're going to be like, oh, wow, like that used to be a GTS standard feature. That used to be something I had to option on a non GTS or below. Some people are going to be thrilled by this. I am not thrilled by this. Let me jump in a little bit just to show you. So you've got low, and you can see this infographic will change to represent height. You've got lowered, slight lift there, and it's happening as I speak. And then you've got normal. We'll get another camel lift here, much more subtle. And then you've got save smart. Thank you. This is one thing that Tesla has given the market that I am thankful for. Thank you, Tesla. But yeah, normal mode or lowered mode. It tends to go to lowered mode on the highway, and normal mode just when you're doing city driving. So these are really your day-to-day, and then you can do the low or the lift kind of forced. Then you get chassis. Chassis in normal, little floaty. Chassis in sport, the bumpiness increases, but the body control doesn't increase to the point where you're like, it justifies the bumpiness. And it's very slight. You have to be very sensitive to these things. I would say maybe on the smaller wheeled cars like this one, that would be a good blend of strengths. I actually, during the drive, I'm sorry to say, I didn't even try Sport Plus, because to me, Sport was kind of already a little too much. The car felt like the chassis was at odds with the rest of it. So, and then the drive modes, that's something that also, like, you're not given anything less sudden than normal like you are in a lot of other cars. So the throttle is less progressive than I would like it to be. And then when you go to sport, the steering gets a little bit deadened. The car feels a little more synthetic and heavy. So I feel like from a drivability standpoint, the things that make a Macan great traditionally have been the drivability factors. And the thing that's missing from this particular EV is those very drivability factors. I think these are things they can code in. I think these are things that they can do with a software update. But I would love to work with Porsche on dialing this car in through one of my businesses. That's a thing I do with OEMs. This is a really promising canvas, but the artist has not finished the painting. And there is a potential here, an overall potential here, that I want to see extracted from this chassis. And I'm sure over time they'll get there. It's just, as it currently stands, it feels like they've left potential on the table. And I don't think that's because I'm driving a base car. I think that's because Porsche's sort of staunchness on doing it their own way has actually held them back in the space. As I was driving it, I was thinking, man, I wish I was driving an Ioniq M. I wish I was driving just a standard Ioniq 5. There were moments when I actually was feeling cravings for other EVs. The i3 is more of a driver's car than this. Not even a i3S, but just an i3, an i3 BEV, just a basic i3. There's a lot left on the table with this particular car. And as I alluded to before, it could be that you do have to go up the product lineup and get more options to get to the more driver focused cars. Speaking of, but I miss the Porsche that didn't require you go full gonzo, full turbo, full ratchet up to the top to get to where the driver's cars resided. This is something that feels like a product strategy and product planning decision. And it feels like Porsche kind of doing what they do so well, which is holding back for profitability's sake. And because they have to create an architecture of like a totem pole where the higher cars are worth buying into. I would love this car with a really dialed in powertrain and chassis and not being forced to go all-wheel drive to get it. Will we see that car? Will that be the new Macan EV T? You know, like that would be the ideal package to me. And after I play with the configurator, which I'll try to make a video on, I will see if it's possible to make the perfect Macan EV as it sits now. But again, you really have to decide, do I want a car with regenerative braking or not? Because if you do, there's no option here. There's no option here for more regen. There's no drive mode or setting for more regen. And I think that's a critical oversight on their part, especially coming from two things. Again, driver's car and brand that's known to have the most incredible pedal feel. And this car, as you can see as I move forward, it's hard not to be jumpy and lurching and ham-fisted with this brake pedal, just as it has been in the Taycan traditionally. So Porsche, let's work together, or just take that advice and do it soon, please. This car deserves better than the calibration it has. I hope this has been helpful. I know it's a lot. My thoughts tend to run in torrents, and I just had an amazing conversation with the manager here, very insightful man. So thank you to Rusnak Porsche in Pasadena, California for their time today. It's rare I give a shout out to a dealership, but good experience today. And yeah, if you're in the area or even if you're not, I would say contact me and I will give you the name of my contact here and we will make sure you get the right product at the right price. I hope this was helpful. Take care.